Frontline Updates, where we delve deep into military strategies and updates from conflict zones. Today, we're discussing the progress of the ongoing special military operation as of today. I'm your host, Sharefa Mohammed MGT.
I'm Colonel A.C. Oguntoye, an infantry officer.
This briefing assesses the Russian Federation Armed Forces daily report dated May 20th, 2026. Russian forces are prosecuting a six-axis synchronized offensive, UNWEST, South, Center, East, Dnepr. This posture disperses Ukrainian reserves and complicates interior line response. The cumulative claimed daily Ukrainian personnel loss of about 990 troops exceeds typical replacement capacity, suggesting progressive erosion of combat power if sustained. However, Russian reported territorial gains remain incremental, improved positions, and more advantageous lines, indicating a methodical attrition campaign rather than an operational breakthrough. Strategic implication: Moscow is prioritizing force preservation and artillery-driven degradation over rapid maneuver, potentially setting conditions for a summer 2026 exploitation.
Welcome to Frontline Updates, the podcast that brings you in-depth insights into military operations from those leading them on the ground. Today, we're joined by Colonel A.C. Oguntoye, an infantry officer monitoring critical missions on the progress of the special military operation as of today. Colonel Oguntoye, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, it's good to be here.
Colonel, let me start broadly. The Russian Ministry of Defense claims that the North, West, South, Center, East, and Dnepr groups of forces all took some form of advantageous action on May 20th. In your professional assessment, what is the overarching operational design behind such a simultaneous six-axis effort?
The overarching design is what we would call a synchronized pressure campaign. Not a single decisive blow, but the application of continuous, coordinated friction across the entire contact line. When you look at the geography, from Sumy in the northeast all the way down to Zaporizhia in the south, the Russian High Command is forcing the Ukrainian General Staff to defend everywhere, which dilutes their ability to mass reserves for a counterstroke. Operationally, this is a classic Soviet-derived concept: reconnaissance strike complex, supported by multiple fixing axes while holding a small number of exploitation forces in reserve. The reported improvements, more advantageous lines, suggest that Russian forces are not trying to sprint to operational depth. They're advancing methodically, often by company-sized tactical groups, to create salients that threaten Ukrainian logistics nodes. The strategic implication is that Moscow is trading speed for survivability.
I want to go sector by sector, because listeners need to understand how each group's reported actions fit together. Let's start with the North Group, operating near Sumy and Kharkiv. The briefing says they improved the tactical situation and inflicted fire damage on a Ukrainian mechanized brigade, an air assault brigade, an assault regiment, and 2 territorial defense brigades. Casualties claimed: up to 165 troops, plus 2 armored fighting vehicles. What does improved the tactical situation actually mean on the ground? And why focus on territorial defense units in Sumy?
That's an excellent question. Improve the tactical situation is a standard military phrase that covers several possible actions. It could mean seizing a tree line, capturing a forward observation post, or simply adjusting the forward line of owned troops by a few hundred meters to deny the enemy a dominant piece of terrain. In the Sumy region specifically, the focus on territorial defense brigades is telling. Territorial units are generally less well equipped and have fewer heavy weapons than regular mechanized brigades. By hitting them consistently, Russian forces are trying to unzip the second echelon, because if territorial defense crumbles, the regular Ukrainian brigades have to extend their own frontages to cover gaps, which leads to overextension. The numbers are modest, 165 losses. But if you sustain that every day for a week, a territorial brigade can lose combat effectiveness. The 2 electronic warfare stations destroyed are also critical.
You mentioned electronic warfare. The report notes 3 EW stations lost in the North Sector. How significant is that for the tempo of Russian operations there?
Very significant. EW stations are force multipliers. Without them, Ukrainian units are more vulnerable to Russian UAV reconnaissance and precision artillery. 3 stations represent a meaningful degradation, probably the work of a dedicated Russian counter-battery or counter-EW team using loitering munitions. For tempo, the immediate effect is that Russian reconnaissance drones can fly deeper and loiter longer, which allows the artillery to engage targets with fewer shells. Over a 72-hour period, that translates to a higher Ukrainian casualty rate per Russian shell fired. It's an efficiency gain, not a headline-grabbing breakthrough, but efficiency wins attrition wars.
Let's move west. The West Group reports taking more advantageous lines and positions near Kharkiv and the Donetsk People's Republic. They claim to have killed or wounded up to 180 Ukrainian troops, destroyed a tank, a M113, a HMMWV, 3 artillery guns, including a M777 and a Paladin, plus 20 motor vehicles. That is a significant amount of Western equipment in one day. Can you explain the operational art behind that sector?
Yes, the West Group operates along the Kharkiv-Donetsk seam, which is a critical logistics corridor for the Ukrainian supply routes running from Kharkiv city down to Sloviansk and Kramatorsk. By taking more advantageous lines, likely high ground or positions astride roads, Russian forces are interdicting those routes. The destruction of an M777 and a Paladin in a single day suggests that Russian counter-battery radar and loitering munitions have achieved a high degree of coordination. Operationally, what you are seeing is a systematic artillery duel where Russian forces are deliberately hunting Western-made howitzers because they are the most accurate long-range weapons Ukraine has. Every Paladin or M777 destroyed forces Ukrainian gunners to rely on older, less precise Soviet-era systems, which reduces their ability to conduct counter-battery themselves. The 20 motor vehicles lost are almost certainly supply trucks, meaning that ammunition and food are not reaching forward units.
Now, the South Group, operating near Druzhkovka, Konstantinovka, Kramatorsk, and other Donetsk towns. The briefing says they improved the situation along the front line and hit units of 3 mechanized brigades, a motorized infantry brigade, a mountain assault brigade, and an airmobile brigade. Losses claimed: up to 100 troops, 1 Leopard tank, 1 Kazakh armored vehicle, 3 artillery guns, and a radar station. That seems like a smaller troop loss number, but a high-value target with the Leopard. What is the South Group's role in the broader campaign?
The South Group is the fixing force for the Donetsk urban arc. Its mission is not necessarily to break through, but to keep Ukrainian formations pinned inside cities like Kramatorsk and Druzhkovka, preventing them from being redeployed north or east. A Leopard tank destroyed is a psychological and material victory. Those are scarce, and Ukraine has lost dozens. The Mountain Assault Brigade is interesting. Mountain troops are usually lighter but highly motivated, often used for flanking maneuvers in broken terrain. By engaging them near urban areas, Russian forces are forcing them to fight a battle for which they are not optimally equipped. The radar station destroyed, likely a counter-battery radar, further degrades Ukrainian fire control. The relatively low claimed Ukrainian troop losses, 100, suggest that the South Group's actions are more about containment and attrition of heavy equipment than about mass infantry clashes. That is a sustainable operational tempo for Russia.
Let's turn to the Center Group, which reported the highest Ukrainian losses of the day. Over 255 troops, plus 4 armored fighting vehicles, and a Paladin self-propelled artillery system. They also claim to have hit the Azov Special Brigade and 3 National Guard brigades. Why is that group so active?
The Center Group operates in the Dnepropetrovsk region and western Donetsk, a sector that has been relatively quiet for months. The fact that they are now taking more advantageous lines and positions suggests that Russian forces have either rotated fresh units into that axis or have shifted their main effort. Targeting the Azov Special Brigade and National Guard is deliberate. Those are Ukraine's most ideologically committed units. Breaking them has an outsized effect on Ukrainian morale. The loss of a Paladin system here is another indicator that Russian counter-battery is highly effective. Over 255 troops in one day is a severe loss for a single Ukrainian brigade. That's roughly a company killed or wounded, which would require weeks to replace. The operational art is clear. Create a crisis on a previously quiet sector to force Ukraine to strip reserves from elsewhere, then exploit those weakened sectors with other groups.
The East Group reported advancing to the depths of the enemy's defense near Dnepropetrovsk and Zaporizhia with over 240 Ukrainian losses. That phrase, depths of the enemy's defense, is strong language. Is that a genuine breakthrough or a tactical penetration?
The phrase is doctrinally significant. In Soviet and Russian operational art, depth of defense refers to the second and third echelons, the reserves, artillery positions, command posts, and logistics hubs behind the forward line. Advancing to that depth means the East Group has punched through the forward security zone and is now engaging Ukrainian forces that were not in prepared positions. That is a more serious development than a simple line improvement. However, to the depths does not mean they have collapsed the entire defense. It means they have achieved local tactical penetration of perhaps 5 to 10 kilometers. The reported loss of only 1 infantry fighting vehicle and 6 motor vehicles on the Ukrainian side is surprisingly low for a deep advance. I would expect higher Ukrainian equipment losses if they were truly caught in depth, so this might be a raid or a reconnaissance in force using aggressive dismounted infantry rather than a full armored thrust.
The final ground sector, the Dnepr Group near Belenkoye, Novoalexandrovka, and Novomikhailovka. They claim over 50 Ukrainian losses, 2 artillery guns, including another M777, and 1 EW station. This seems like a lower intensity sector. Why keep a group active there at all?
Because the Dnepr River line is a strategic flank. The Dnepr Group is conducting economy of force operations, fixing Ukrainian mountain assault and territorial brigades so they cannot redeploy north to the Zaporizhia or Donetsk fronts. The loss of another M777 is significant because those howitzers are Ukraine's best tool for interdicting Russian crossing points over the Dnepr. By degrading that artillery and EW coverage, the Dnepr Group is setting conditions for possible future Russian river crossings, not imminent, but a long-term shaping operation. 50 troops lost per day is a sustainable attrition rate that doesn't require large Russian reserves. It's the military equivalent of a slow bleed.
Colonel, we've gone through all 6 ground sectors. Now I want to devote a full segment to what the original briefing calls operational tactical aviation, attack drones, missile troops, and artillery. The report says they destroyed a German-made Gepard self-propelled anti-aircraft system and struck fuel and power infrastructure, ammunition depots, assembly workshops, UAV storage areas, and temporary deployment areas of foreign mercenaries in 143 areas. Then, Air Defense claims 780 fixed-wing UAVs shot down. Listeners might skim past this as a footnote, but I suspect you see it as the central shaping tool. Explain.
Operational tactical aviation is not a footnote. It is the primary engine of Russian attrition. Ground maneuver exists largely to set conditions for aviation and artillery, not the other way around. Let me break this down. First, the destruction of a Gepard SPAG is operationally critical. The Gepard is one of the few mobile systems that can reliably engage Russian loitering munitions and attack drones. By eliminating it, Russian aviation gains a temporary corridor of lower risk. Second, the strike on fuel and power infrastructure. This is classic strategic paralysis. Fuel depots feed Ukrainian mobility. Power infrastructure feeds their railway system for moving reserves. Hitting 143 separate areas in one day is a massive sortie generation rate. It tells me that Russian airfields are operating at very high tempo, probably with multiple waves of Su-34, Su-35, and attack helicopters.
Colonel, thank you for providing such a detailed briefing on the current military situation. Your insights are invaluable to our understanding of the conflict's dynamics. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Join us next time as we continue to provide up-to-date coverage on global military affairs. Stay with us for more updates and expert analyses on global defense and security issues. Stay informed, stay secure.
Thank you for the opportunity.